So last thing I wanted to bring up, man. So you have ESRD,
Hmm.
and so that is long-term kidney failure. Is that
Hmm.
what that? Okay, because I've seen you
Yeah.
post about it before. I've never really
Yeah.
talked to you about it, but we mentioned it briefly off mic. Uh, so what all does that involve? Like what? I had a friend who he had to do dialysis. He has had issues his
Hmm.
entire life, and I think he might actually have the same thing that you do.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I just remember he I remember the situation he was in. He got dialysis like twice a week,
Hmm.
and it was one of those things where when you get the dialysis, you're wiped out for the day. It just beats you
Yes.
up pretty bad, but then you're totally normal for like a
Hmm.
couple days, and then you just have to go get it again. And I think he was getting it twice a week, and it was really concerning. I mean, now he does not need it any longer, but because I believe he got a new kidney.
Hmm.
Um, but when he was going through it, I mean, and he was I don't want to go into too much detail out of respect for his privacy, but he basically had he was a working for himself. He had clients, and he didn't want any clients to know what he was going through, and he just was hoping that they wouldn't notice that he only returned phone calls or emails certain weeks, and there were 2 weekdays where he never would because he
Hmm.
was going through dialysis, and he had to figure out a way to just get all of his work done on
Hmm.
those 3 days and then
Hmm.
try to have a weekend when he could. And it was intense. So what is your experience like? If whatever you will share.
Hmm. Yeah, so I was born with a disease called nephrotic syndrome. That is a juvenile kidney disease where it actually attacks the glomerulus, their filtrations that are inside your kidneys. And so, years ago when I was in my 20s, I my kidneys officially failed, so I had to go on dialysis. Dialysis is basically a system where your uh, what I go through is called hemodialysis. There's two different kinds, but hemodialysis basically means that your blood is taken out through a closed circuit loop. It goes through a tube, what's called a dialyzer. And that dialyzer pulls out impurities, and those impurities that typically build up in your blood is called urea. And so that urea that builds up can be toxic to your body. Now, typically in a healthy human being, the urea is actually pulled out from your kidneys and then transferred to your bladder where you can execute it. Unfortunately, because people like me, my kidneys do not work, it doesn't pull the urea or impurities. And also, the excess fluid that's in your vascular space is also not pulled out. So, the excess in fluid as well as the excess impurities builds up in the body, which can result in death. Okay. So, because you, as a healthy human being, your kidneys are constantly working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're basically you're literally dialyzing right now as you sit there. But me, I'm not. And so this is why I go personally 3 times a week to get that dialysis done. And it has to happen unless I can get a kidney transplant. If I don't get a kidney transplant, then I'm on dialysis basically for the rest of my life. So it's a life sustaining treatment. So, like for instance, if I don't go for a few days, I can die.
Yeah.
And so um, dialysis also not only takes out the impurities and takes out excess fluid, but it also restores the pH balance within your body as well. And so um, I've been doing dialysis for, gosh, it's about to be May. I was 23 at the time, so I think I'm going to my 14th year. Um, but I need to qualify for a transplant, and I'm working on that right now. But yeah, and dialysis 3 times a week is very difficult because it wears you out.
Sure.
And it's not just a worn out like, oh, I just got to rest for a couple of hours and I'm good. Absolutely not. This is where you out where once you get home, you sleep for hours and hours. Now, not everybody's the same. Some people can sleep for a couple of hours and they're good. Some people like myself, I'm out for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so it also makes, having a job or working also much more difficult because working full time, if I'm at dialysis 3 days a week, that only gives me 4 days, and dialysis is just like having a job because you're
Yeah.
exhausted as if you were working a job and you're gone for hours at a time, like you're at a job. And then by the time you get home, you're exhausted. Well, I did the same thing where I worked 40 hours a week, plus I did dialysis.
Oh,
And that
geez.
nearly killed me.
That's
um,
I don't know. I can't even imagine. I mean, that's brutal.
yeah, yeah. And so the problem though is you know you can't necessarily survive on doing that. And of course, you can do things like get disability and things like that. But the problem with disability is that it is woefully inadequate. The amount that many people get is either at what the minimum wage is or less than that. And so you have people who are literally disabled who are earning a poverty income, not earning, but they're getting a poverty income from disability. And so this is one of the reasons why I'm also big on expanding Social Security, because you have a lot of people who are disabled right now who feel like they're invisible to society and they just need to suffer in silence and just stay over there and you don't matter. And we need to not only expand it, but also people who get taxed on Social Security, you're only taxed on Social Security up to, I think it's $130,000 of your income. So, for instance, somebody like Jeff Bezos' wealth, if we actually taxed him for Social Security, let's say up to $10 million instead, then how much better will we be able to supplement the incomes of people who are on Social Security, either disability or retirement? And before anyone goes, oh, that's just for disabled or retirement people, I just want to say you will eventually either need it for retirement or disability. One of those two are going to happen. So it behooves everyone to care about this issue. So I kind of transitioned to that because I also wanted to talk about that a little bit, about how important that is, because your country is only as good as, the weakest or the most disenfranchised among you. And so
Well,
some of the
and how it
weakest,
looks out for those people. Like
exactly.
how it looks out for people who are, disabled through no fault of their own and
Hmm.
like just basically not offering a quality of life when there are more
Hmm.
than enough resources to do so. It
Yes.
says a lot about a society and not in a good way in our
Hmm.
case, big time. So
Absolutely.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make